There's something about the stillness of the early morning hours when the world is at rest that carries a divine significance. Have you ever found yourself wide awake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., wondering why you just can't seem to stay asleep? My friend, let me tell you something, this is not a mere coincidence. This is a divine invitation. God is calling you, and He is speaking in this sacred hour. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., there is something profoundly spiritual that happens, a quiet yet powerful moment often referred to as the divine hour of revelation. This time is significant in many ways, not just for what it represents physically, but for the spiritual realities it unveils. In these early morning hours, when most of the world is asleep, God chooses to speak in ways that are deeper and clearer than at any other time of the day. It is a period where distractions are minimal, and the silence allows your spirit to become more sensitive to the movements of God's Spirit. There is something about the stillness of this time that creates the perfect atmosphere for revelation. God is always speaking, but often the noise of life, our schedules, responsibilities, and the hustle and bustle of the day drowns out His voice. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., however, those distractions have faded into the background. The world is still. The atmosphere is different. And in that stillness, your spirit is more receptive. It's as though the quiet allows your soul to tune into the frequency of heaven. And in that moment, God reveals things you couldn't hear in the busyness of the day. During this time, God often brings to the forefront things you need to know, things He's been trying to show you, but that you've been too busy to see. These might be revelations about your future, about your purpose, or even about decisions you need to make. Sometimes He brings correction, showing you where you've gone off track and gently leading you back to the path He's laid out for you. Other times He provides a vision for your life, giving you a glimpse of what's ahead and what He's calling you to pursue. This period is also significant because it's when your heart is most open to receive these revelations. In the stillness of the early morning, your defenses are down. You're not thinking about the challenges of the day ahead or the pressures of yesterday. You are simply present. And it's in this state of openness that God can reveal the things that will transform your life. These revelations are often not loud or dramatic, rather. They are soft whispers of truth that resonate deeply in your spirit, leaving you with a sense of clarity and peace. God's revelations during this time are not just for your personal growth, but often for the benefit of others as well. He may reveal things to you about people in your life, situations that need prayer, or even global events. He might show you things that others cannot yet see, calling you to be an intercessor or a voice of wisdom in the midst of confusion. This is a time when He prepares you to be a vessel through which His plans can unfold on earth. Moreover, between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., spiritual activity is heightened. This is a time when the veil between the physical and spiritual realms seems thinner, and God's revelations often carry a sense of urgency. It's as though He's waking you up for a reason. There's something He needs you to see or hear, and it can't wait until later. This sense of urgency isn't meant to cause anxiety, but to heighten your awareness of the significance of what He's revealing. It's a divine appointment, and God is asking you to be present in that moment, fully engaged with what He's saying. In this sacred time, God imparts wisdom, direction, and insight that can guide you through the challenges of life. The revelations you receive during this hour are often foundational, providing the clarity and understanding you need to navigate the days and weeks ahead. These divine moments are precious, and they have the power to shape your life in ways you may not even realize at the time. When God wakes you up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it is often a call to prayer and intercession. This is not just a random waking, nor is it a moment to be ignored or brushed aside. It is a divine summons, a quiet yet profound invitation from God to enter into His presence with purpose. In these early hours, when the world is still and distractions are few, God is calling you to stand in the gap for yourself, for your loved ones, and for situations in the world that need divine intervention. Prayer during this time is not just about asking God for things. It's about entering into a deeper, more intimate connection with Him. In the silence of these hours, your spirit is more sensitive, more attuned to what God is saying and doing. That you are more able to listen, to sense His presence, and to respond to His prompting. This is why these hours are so crucial for intercession, because it's in this stillness that God's heart becomes clear to you. He may be calling you to pray for a specific person, a situation, or even a nation. He may be waking you up because there is a battle being fought in the spiritual realm, and He needs you to pray with power and authority to bring about change. Intercession, in this context, is more than just a simple prayer. It is standing in the gap for others, taking on the burden of prayer for those who may not even know they need it. God may place someone on your heart, and in these early hours, He is asking you to carry them in prayer. It might be someone close to you, or it might be a complete stranger. But in this moment, God is asking you to partner with Him in prayer, to lift up that person's needs, struggles, and challenges before His throne. This is also a time when spiritual warfare is heightened. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., the forces of darkness are often at work. But this is also when God calls His people to rise up in prayer and take authority over the enemy. In these moments, God may reveal to you spiritual attacks that are happening whether in your own life or in the lives of those around you. He is calling you to pray, to intercede, and to break the power of those attacks through the authority He has given you. This is why it's so important to heed the call when God wakes you up during these hours. It's not just about you. It's about standing in the gap for others and bringing God's power and presence into situations that desperately need His intervention. The prayers you pray in this time carry a special weight. Because the distractions of the day are absent, your prayers can be more focused, more direct, and more powerful. You are able to pray with clarity and precision, hearing God's direction and praying in alignment with His will. This is why intercession during this time can be so effective. It's not just about you speaking to God, it's about partnering with Him, hearing His heart, and praying according to His purposes. Sometimes God may wake you up not because of an immediate need, but because He is preparing you for something to come. He may be calling you into prayer and intercession for a future event, equipping you spiritually for what lies ahead. In these early hours, He is preparing your heart, building your spiritual strength, and giving you insight that will be crucial in the days to come. This preparation through prayer is vital for walking in alignment with His plans and purposes. When God wakes you up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it often serves as a pivotal moment of realignment with your spiritual purpose. In the stillness of these hours, He speaks in ways that recalibrate your heart and mind, setting you back on course when life's distractions or detours have shifted your focus. This is not just about waking up physically, but about waking up spiritually, becoming aware of the divine plan that God has for you and the steps He is calling you to take. In the busyness of everyday life, it's easy to lose sight of your true purpose. Responsibilities, obligations, and even the expectations of others can cloud your vision and pull you in directions that may not align with the path God has intended for you. When God wakes you in the early hours of the morning, He is often using that quiet moment to bring you back to the center of His will. This is a time where God pulls you aside, away from the noise of the world, to refocus your heart and realign your life with the purpose He has called you to fulfill. God's purposes for your life are not random. They are deliberate, carefully crafted, and specific to the gifts and calling He has placed within you. Yet, as humans, we often drift away from that purpose. Maybe it's because of doubt, fear, or even a sense of unworthiness. Perhaps you've faced setbacks or obstacles that have made you question whether you're really on the right path. In these early morning hours, God reminds you of who you are in Him, and He draws you back to the plans He has for you. He strips away the lies of inadequacy, clears away the fog of confusion, and speaks truth into your heart. This is a sacred time for you to come back into alignment with the person God created you to be. This realignment is not just about correcting your actions, but also your heart. Sometimes our hearts become weighed down by worries, insecurities, or misplaced desires. We start to pursue things that seem good but aren't necessarily part of God's plan for us. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., God may wake you up to address the condition of your heart. He searches deep within you, bringing to light the areas where you strayed from His purpose. It might be a matter of priorities. Maybe you've been putting more energy into things that don't reflect His will, or perhaps you've allowed fear to take control, steering you away from what He's calling you to do. In these quiet moments, God gently guides you back, helping you to reorder your heart and realign your desires with His perfect plan. During this time, God often provides clarity and direction. When you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it's a sign that He wants to reveal something important to you. This is when you're most open to hearing His voice and when He often speaks the clearest. He may be giving you direction on a decision you need to make, or He may be offering insight into the next step of your journey. It's not always about drastic change. Sometimes it's about small shifts in your mindset or perspective that bring you closer to the purpose He has for your life. God uses this time to reveal what's truly important. It's in these early hours that He reminds you of the higher calling. You're a part of the greater picture of His kingdom that you've been called to contribute to. He helps you see beyond the immediate, the temporary, and the superficial, drawing your attention to what really matters in the light of eternity. This realignment can often bring a deep sense of peace, because when you are walking in alignment with God's purpose, there is a confidence that comes from knowing you are right where you're supposed to be. As God wakes you in these early hours, He is reminding you that His plans for you are good, that His purpose for your life is not to harm you but to give you hope and a future. He is inviting you to trust Him more deeply, to walk in step with His Spirit, and to embrace the purpose He has designed for you. When God wakes you up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it is often a time for spiritual warfare. This is not just a moment of prayer or reflection, but a call to engage in the unseen battle that takes place in the spiritual realm. During these early hours, there is a heightened sense of spiritual activity. It is a time when God calls His people to rise, not to fight with physical weapons, but with the weapons of prayer, faith, and spiritual authority. The enemy is active during this period, but so is God, and He is equipping you to stand strong and victorious in the battle. Spiritual warfare is a reality that every believer must face. It is the battle between light and darkness, good and evil, that takes place in the heavenly realms but affects our lives on earth. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and rulers of darkness. These forces are always at work, trying to undermine God's purposes and bring destruction into the lives of His people. But God, in His wisdom, often wakes you up during these critical hours to empower you to take authority over the forces of darkness through prayer and intercession. In these moments, God is calling you to recognize the spiritual attacks that may be happening around you, whether in your personal life, your family, or even in broader contexts like your community or nation. These attacks are often subtle, manifesting as confusion, division, fear, or oppression. But during this time of spiritual warfare, God opens your eyes to see beyond the physical and into the spiritual. He gives you discernment to recognize where the enemy is at work, and He equips you with the power to push back against it. One of the reasons God wakes you up during this time is because the enemy prefers to work in darkness. The early hours of the morning are often when spiritual forces of evil are most active, seeking to plant seeds of doubt, fear, and destruction. But God interrupts these plans by waking you up and calling you to stand in the gap. Through prayer, you can confront these forces head-on, rebuking them in the name of Jesus and declaring God's victory over every scheme of the enemy. This is not a time to be passive. When God wakes you up for spiritual warfare, He is asking you to take your place on the battlefield. He is calling you to rise up in faith, to put on the full armor of God, and to wage war against the enemy's attacks. This might mean praying for protection over your family, breaking generational curses, or interceding for someone who is going through a tough battle. It could also mean declaring God's promises over your life and refusing to allow fear or doubt to take root. Whatever the specific call, It is a moment of intentional, focused prayer that has the power to shift things in the spiritual realm. God also uses this time to remind you of the authority you have in Christ. As a believer, you are not powerless in the face of spiritual attacks. Jesus has given you authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, Luke 10:19. This authority is not something to be taken lightly. It is a powerful weapon in spiritual warfare. When you pray in the early hours, you are not praying from a position of weakness, but from a position of victory. You are declaring that through Christ you have already overcome, and that the enemy's schemes cannot prevail against you. Moreover, spiritual warfare during these hours often involves a breaking of strongholds. There may be areas in your life or the lives of others where the enemy has gained a foothold, whether through fear, addiction, doubt, or other forms of bondage. But during this time of prayer and warfare, God gives you the strength and authority to break those chains. Through prayer, you can tear down every stronghold that the enemy has built, declaring freedom and restoration in Jesus' name. God's call to spiritual warfare during these early hours is not something to be taken lightly. It is a moment of divine empowerment where God equips you to stand against the enemy's attacks and walk in victory. Through prayer, you are not only defending yourself and those around you, but you are advancing God's kingdom, pushing back the darkness and making way for His light to shine. When God wakes you up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it is often an invitation to listen to His still, small voice. This is a time when the distractions of the day have faded away, the noise has quieted, and your mind and spirit are in a state where they can be more attuned to the subtle movements of God's Spirit. In these early hours, God does not always speak through dramatic signs or loud proclamations. Instead, He often speaks in a gentle whisper, a quiet prompting, or a deep inner knowing that requires you to be still and attentive. The still, small voice of God is something precious, something that requires sensitivity and openness. It is a whisper that calls you deeper into intimacy with Him. Unlike the loud voices that compete for your attention throughout the day, this voice is subtle and calm, inviting you into a place of peace and reflection. God's voice in these moments is often not about revealing grand plans or making bold declarations. Rather, it is about drawing you into a closer relationship with Him, where you can hear His heart and understand His desires for your life. Listening to this voice takes practice, and it requires intentional stillness. Often when we are woken up in the early hours, our instinct might be to roll over and go back to sleep, thinking it is just a random disturbance. But when God is waking you up, it is not by accident. It is a moment He has ordained for you to sit quietly in His presence and listen. In these moments, God may not always speak words that are easy to discern right away. Sometimes it's just a feeling of peace or a sense that you are not alone. Other times He may bring to mind a scripture, a memory, or a person that needs prayer. The still, small voice of God often speaks to the deep things in your heart. He may be calling attention to areas of your life that need healing, forgiveness, or realignment with His will. He might be inviting you to let go of burdens that you've been carrying, or to trust Him in ways you haven't yet dared. In the quiet of these moments, you are more able to hear the things that your busy mind would normally drown out. It's a sacred time where God speaks to the core of who you are, gently guiding you, comforting you, and giving you clarity on things that have been weighing on your heart. Listening to God's still, small voice also requires faith. It takes faith to believe that God is speaking to you, even if it's not in the way you might expect. You may not hear an audible voice, but that doesn't mean God is silent. His whispers are often felt more than heard, sensed more than spoken. They come in the form of a deep peace, a sense of direction, or even a sudden clarity about a situation you've been praying over. Trusting in the subtlety of His voice requires you to let go of the need for constant affirmation and to rest in the knowledge that God is communicating with you, even if it's in a quiet, gentle way. One of the most powerful aspects of hearing God's still, small voice during this time is that it often brings a deep sense of comfort and reassurance. When God speaks to you in these quiet moments, He is reminding you that He is with you, that He sees you, and that He is actively involved in your life. His voice brings peace that transcends circumstances, reminding you that no matter what you are facing, He is in control. It's in these quiet moments that God reassures you of His love, His faithfulness, and His constant presence. The still, small voice is also one that directs your steps. In the early hours of the morning, God may give you gentle guidance on decisions you need to make, or He might nudge you to act in ways that align more closely with His plans for your life. His voice won't always be about big, life-changing directions sometimes. It's about the small, daily choices that keep you in step with His Spirit. As you learn to recognize His voice and respond to it, you begin to walk in greater alignment with His will, experiencing the peace and fulfillment that comes from following His lead. When God wakes you between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it is an opportunity to quiet your heart and listen. His still, small voice is speaking, offering peace, direction, and a deeper connection to His presence. When God wakes you up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it often signals that He is preparing you for a new season in your life. This is a time of transition, of moving from one phase to another, and God uses these quiet, early hours to get your attention, to ready your heart, and to align you with what is to come. The stillness of these moments is an opportunity for you to reflect, listen, and open yourself to the work that God is doing in your life. It's not just about the dawn of a new day, but the dawn of a new season, a time of transformation, growth, and purpose. Preparation for a new season requires a willingness to let go of the old. There are things, habits, relationships, or even mindsets that might have served you in a previous season, but they no longer fit where God is taking you. When God wakes you during these hours, it's often to invite you into a process of pruning, of shedding the things that are holding you back or no longer aligning with His will. It can be difficult to release what is familiar, but God is calling you to trust that what He has ahead is greater than what is behind. This is a time to surrender fully to His plan, even when it's unclear, and allow Him to make space in your life for the new things He wants to bring. In these early morning hours, God may be calling you to reflect on your current circumstances and ask yourself what needs to change. This preparation is not passive. It requires introspection and action. God might wake you up to examine your spiritual life, your relationships, or your career, and ask you to make adjustments that will better position you for the new season. This might mean stepping out of your comfort zone, taking risks, or making hard decisions that will ultimately lead to growth and progress. God is shaping you for what's ahead, and He is calling you to cooperate with that process. Often when God is preparing you for a new season, He also calls you into a deeper relationship with Him. The early hours of the morning are a time of intimacy, where distractions are minimal and your spirit is more attuned to His voice. God may be using this time to deepen your faith, to teach you how to rely on Him in ways you haven't before. He is inviting you into a season where you depend not on your own strength, but on His guidance and provision. This preparation is spiritual as much as it is practical. God is laying the foundation for you to step into a season of greater faith, deeper connection with Him, and more profound trust in His timing. During this preparation period, God is also giving you clarity. The early hours are a time of revelation, where God begins to reveal the next steps in His plan for you. This clarity doesn't always come all at once, but in these quiet moments, He may start to unfold pieces of the vision He has for your future. He might place new ideas, dreams, or desires in your heart, or He might give you a renewed sense of direction in areas that have felt uncertain. This is a time to listen closely, to journal, to pray, and to seek His guidance with an open heart. God is giving you insight into what is coming, and He is equipping you with the wisdom and understanding you need to step into it confidently. A new season often brings challenges, but it also brings new opportunities. In these early hours, God is strengthening you for the journey ahead. He is building your character, increasing your resilience, and preparing you to handle both the blessings and the responsibilities that come with this new phase of life. The preparation may involve refining processes, times of waiting, testing, and learning. But these are not wasted moments. God is using every part of the preparation to make you ready for what's coming, ensuring that when the new season arrives, you are fully equipped to thrive in it. When God wakes you up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it's because He sees the future He has for you, and He knows what it will take for you to walk into it successfully. He is preparing you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and even physically for the new season He has planned. This preparation is an act of love. God doesn't want you to be caught off guard or unprepared. He is lovingly guiding you through the process step by step, ensuring that when the time comes to step into the new season, you are ready to embrace it fully and walk in the fullness of His purpose for your life. In the early hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., God often wakes us for a divine purpose, inviting us into a deeper connection with Him. This sacred time serves as a call to prayer and intercession, a moment to engage in spiritual warfare, and an opportunity to listen to His still small voice. As we navigate this space, we find ourselves being prepared for new seasons of life, shedding the old to embrace the new. As we learn to recognize and respond to God's presence during these hours, we realize that we are not merely waking up, we are awakening to His divine plan. We are being called to walk in authority, to listen intently, and to engage actively in the work He is doing within and around us. Let us embrace these early mornings as sacred opportunities, trusting that God has a beautiful purpose for every moment we spend in His presence.